Today, I'm going to do one of my favorite things. I'm going to unbox a really nice chessboard. There's just nothing like it. You know, one of those chessboards that you can have with you for your whole life. So thanks to House of Staunton for sending this over. Actually, before I open this, I want to show you something else also. The board came with this giant box as well. We're going to open that as well and see what's inside. We'll go over the chessboard and the features. Then I will see if it's also good for ASMR. So I am going to show you a game of it, and it's going to be a game of Staunton. This is from the House of Staunton, and it is with the Staunton design, so you can see it all fits together. Are you ready to take a look? Let's unveil this. Now, that is a chessboard. This one is very shiny. There is a very clear, very strong lacquer on it. And you can see the details in the woodwork, the quality of the tree. Let's turn it over. It's made in Spain, as you can see. You can see the wood here. Craftsmanship. They have felt on here, so it won't be scratched. Everything you would expect from a premium chessboard. How about that other box? Let's take a look. I feel very privileged. Okay, we have one box here. Okay, which one should we open first? Let's go with the smaller one. So I'm not actually sure. They said they wanted to surprise me. Oh, this is the Zagreb chess set. I believe it's a favorite of Bobby Fischer's, actually. And you can see it's made from rosewood and gilded boxwood. So I guess this must be pieces, but then what about this other box over here? Will you look at that? Will you look at that? That's very nice. That is very nice. Ah, yes. One super cool thing about the Zagreb design, let me get the king out here, is that, of course, with the Staunton design of chess pieces, I'll tell you much more about the Staunton design. That was made in Europe, of course. The original chess is not from Europe, but it was made in Europe, where the king had to be a Christian. So on top of most chess sets, on the king you will have a little cross to symbolize the religion. And of course, we can put this here on the Zagreb. You can say this could be the traditional Christian king, but you may also not want to associate with that. Maybe you are an atheist or agnostic, or you have a different religion. So you can, with this set, also have this. You can have this. And I think I will go with that. Just I don't have any strong feelings about it, but all my other sets have the cross, so let's go with this for this video. Okay, so we have the white pieces here. Let's get them out. Individually wrapped. There's a little bit of ASMR right there. Below this, I would be much surprised if we do not find the black pieces. I mean, look at the design of this knight. Look at this. How beautiful that is. Oh, that's so cool. That is very nice. That is very nice. Howard Staunton was the best chess player in the world before Adolf Anderssen in the 1840s and very early 50s maybe. And in 1851 he promoted this design. He didn't design it himself, he made it with some designers and promoted it at a chess tournament, the greatest chess tournament in the world at that point. The first great chess tournament. I will tell you more about that. But first, let's look at this other mysterious box that just about fits in between the pieces. So let's take a look here. Okay. So, okay, is this like a really large box for the chess pieces? See also the engraving, House of Staunton. I think this is just a very, very beautiful box. Wait a minute. It's locked. No, it's not locked, but there is a lock in it. Okay. This is almost too much. Look at how beautiful and detail. It even smells good. Okay, there's some silica gel. Don't need that. A key and an extra key. Okay. I wonder if the lock-picking lawyer can pick this very advanced lock. And then I guess this is just to hold the keys. That's so cool. So I can lock. I could put my chess pieces in here. They're gonna lock, and then I could. Does it give a satisfying sound when we lock it? Let's check it out. Let's check it out. Not quite, but it does lock. It does lock. I mean, this is just very nice. House of Staunton, thank you guys. I mean, yeah, and of course I will put links in the description to the chess pieces, to the chessboard used and everything. Sure, House of Staunton would appreciate that, and I'm sure you will as well. And who knows, maybe I can even negotiate a discount for you. I'll put on the screen here if I can give you a discount also. That would be really cool. So you could also have one of these. Now, let's show a beautiful game, shall we? So now we are ready with our new chessboard, with the Staunton design, to travel back in time to one of the most famous and important events in all of chess history, actually. Howard Staunton had arranged during the Great Exhibition a chess tournament, the first great chess tournament ever held, with all the best players from all over Europe. And he hoped, and I think expected, to win it himself, but a guy by the name of Adolf Anderssen came, and he played, among other brilliant games, Anderssen played the immortal game against Kisharsky at this tournament, and he also played against Howard Staunton in the tournament. Staunton used this tournament to promote this design, so all the games were being played with this new Staunton design, and that is basically the design that you will see slight variations of on almost all chessboards today. Chessboards that do not have this design we will usually call novel chessboards today. The tournament was held in like this giant glass palace, and maybe you can hear the faint drumming of the rain here at the studio. Can you hear it? So that is also how it would have sounded if it was raining on this particular day in 1851, when Anderssen and Staunton clashed at the board. And they were playing a match, and this is the game that Staunton won. He lost the rest of them, but he won this one, and he started with the black pieces. Yes, you heard that right. He started with the black pieces. Back then, you could start with white or with black. It didn't matter. So now, of course, white always starts. I'm going to show as if he was playing white. He played pawn to e4 on the first move. I'm going to show as if he was playing with the white pieces, because in effect that's what he did, and frankly I would confuse myself too much if I showed him playing with the black pieces and starting the game. I know I have turned these knights one way and these knights another way, but it's just so you can better see them. I think the design is so nice, and this catches the light a little better. So I'm going to go pretty quickly over a lot of the main part of the game, because something in the ending is extremely interesting. So we get an Italian game, symmetrical bishops coming out in this opening called the Italian game. And yeah, the ending of this game is really interesting, because what happened at the end will make you maybe happy that you are not as strong a chess player as Adolf Anderssen, because Adolf Anderssen was so good, he didn't find the best move, and because you are not as good, you would have probably found the best move. You would certainly have found a better move than what Adolf Anderssen played. That is quite paradoxical. Very rarely that we can say that, but that is the case, and I will explain it when we get to the end of the game. But now we have Staunton coming out with the white pieces, claiming the center, getting an aggressive bishop, and a sort of mirror strategy with the defensive knight from the great Adolf Anderssen. And we get the classical variation with pawn to c3. Pawn to c3 is about the d4 square. Wants to come here, you see. Wants to come here. The knight comes out with an attack on this. So maybe there's not time to play this, but indeed it is played. This is taken because we have no time to take here, because the bishop is hanging here. So the pawn is taken. It's very important actually for me, the sound of the pieces when you make that stun capture there. It's very important for me. And here you don't recapture. The bishop could get out of this with a check and you would lose time. Instead you play pawn to e5. And here's a little thing that you can learn. It's always nice to learn a little something while having some tingles. It's very often in these Italian games, also in the Ruy Lopez's Spanish game, that when a pawn attacks your knight, and if you're black, the pawn comes to e5, you should consider the move pawn to d5 with a counterattack on the bishop before moving the knight, so that the pawn is defended by both the queen and the knight. This is very often the best move. Indeed, in this position, it is the only good move. And the answer is surprisingly not to capture it en passant, but instead to move the bishop out of the attack and pin this knight, so that this knight is no longer attacking this. This knight is now very much under threat. It will move out with an aggressive move, both players going for the kill, playing romantic chess, as was the fashion at the time, aggressive, spectacular, going for their opponent's majesty right from the get-go. And this sort of style has very much gone out of fashion, but this very position was reached very interestingly between Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen just 4 years ago. So this is not completely unsound actually. And now white will capture. Material equal again. Now we see this mechanism of gaining the tempo with moving the bishop out of way, with a check on the king. The king, of course, we cannot allow to lose the king. So we block not with the bishop, but with the knight in this case. And castles for black and castles for white. And I know I could explain these moves in much more detail. Let me know if you want a second video where I explain the strategy and tactics of these moves in much greater detail. But I really want to get to the finish of the game to explain the tactics, what's going on there, because they are really fascinating. They are what is really unique about this game to my mind. Bishop comes out, pinning the knight to the queen. Knight can move, we lose the queen. And that means the knight is no longer really defending this pawn. This knight can come in and capture that. Staunton did not want that, therefore he captured this knight, giving up the bishop pair. Yeah, I really like these pieces. I really like them. Okay, giving up the bishop pair, but inflicting double pawns here. That could be a potential weakness later on, and we will see him try to pawn pounce on that immediately, with the queen coming to c2, attacking this now weak pawn, simultaneously getting out from the d1 square where it was in this pin with the bishop and knight. And now can you hear the rain? Oh wow, that's a lot of rain. Because you don't know where my studio is, but if you knew, you would know that for us to be able to hear the rain, I've done a lot of stuff to soundproof the studio, because I really want to have nice and quiet. So for us to be able to hear the rain like that, it has to be raining pretty heavily. Okay, well, what happens now? What happens now is we see sort of a mirror where, and this may be a slight mistake from Adolf Anderssen actually, he also gives up the bishop pair, but obviously this bishop is not recaptured here with double pawns that would leave an avenue of attack towards the king, and we have this knight very nicely defending the bishop. So what would be the point of that? Well, the point is to activate this rook, allowing this pawn to be captured. What is Anderssen thinking here? Giving up this pawn? Well, it was not that big of a deal in 1851 to give up a pawn. That was seen as the romantic thing to do, you see. The romantic thing to do, to give up some material and come in for the counter-attack. And the counter-attack comes here with this rook out with a slide very nicely. So the rook being nicely protected by the pawns, attacking the queen. Queen will have to move, and it goes back to c2. So yes, Staunton did get a pawn, but Adolf Anderssen got this rook into the game with tempo. And this rook is very important. It can swing over here, we will see that, and we'll start an attack against the king. We can actually see how it works already, because we see f5 by Adolf Anderssen, the great Adolf Anderssen. And he was so good at chess, but you should be very happy that you are not as good at chess as he was, because that means you can play better moves sometimes. And this game will show you how being a great chess player worked against him. Okay, so he played this, and this solidifies this knight. Pillsbury had not sprung onto the scene yet, but this is what we today would call maybe a Pillsbury knight, very nicely defended. And the point here is, yes, you could capture this pawn en passant, but rook takes here, and these two rooks would just be very strong, attacking this knight and attacking the whole king position. So that is why we do not see pawn capturing en passant here. Instead, we see Staunton thinking about how to develop this bishop, and you can notice the strength of this knight also attacking here in concert with the queen, so there's no way to go here, for instance. Also not really want to go here, so what do we do? Well, we start, Howard Staunton started by kicking this bishop. It dropped all the way back, and then he played pawn to b4. So he's taking space here on the queen side, and he's also open, or potentially, for this bishop to come to b2. And here we see pawn to f4, preparing the attack, gaining a lot of space here towards the king, gaining a lot of space. You see that? A lot of space. And now the queen, with this open here, can start thinking about coming up here and into the game, attacking the king. But Staunton had this interesting idea. He went back with the it's like waving a red flag at a bull. I know bulls actually kind of colorblind, but it's like just an expression, you know. And rook h6 was played now with an attack here. So what could be the point? Point is f3. Now what does that do? Well, it attacks this knight. So this knight will have to move. Anderson pretty happily goes here. You can see we're attacking here. This is nicely defended by the knight though. But we could also maybe here check. You can capture because of the pin. So Howard Staunton is up one pawn, but is his position defensible? You know, can you defend this? Actually, the computer says he's doing pretty well here. Just need accurate play. The knight starts to reroute, getting back in the game and attacking this pawn. Pawn has to be defended. This knight comes all the way back here now. So the sort of dance of the knights going on. And finally, the bishop comes to b2, looking into the necks of these two pawns a little bit, but it is doing more here than on the original square, and the rooks are now connected. Queen comes to the light squares, and you can see here, and checkmate. That is the idea. Not the deepest strategical idea ever. And you're being attacked on the side here. Maybe you should defend on the side. Maybe you should make a counterattack here, but the knight is defending. So will it really work? Well, the rook and the queen are now looking at c7. The queen does get into the game. h3 is played. So obviously if you don't play h3, queen coming here with check, your king has to go here, and it's all crumpling. It's all going south very fast. So h3, there is no queen takes because pawn takes, and okay. But the light squares are the only squares that are defended. The dark squares you see here, no longer defended. Rook comes to g6, threatening queen takes here because the pawn here is now pinned to the king. Knight comes back. The knight didn't continue. The knight is now defending h3. And the rook goes deep into the position. What is the threat? The threat is that with the rook here and with the knight here blocking the view from this rook on this pawn, the queen can come in and capture here, which explains king to h2, so that the king is no longer, this pawn is no longer pinned to the king. One more point of this move earlier coming up here is that the rook couldn't come here or be captured, so it can now come here, and it wants to join the queen in the attack. How do we really stop this? Queen coming to c6, for instance, with a threat of check here and capturing the knight. Queen moves back to defend the knight, but also look at this. Rook can capture here. Can you continue defending this? Well, you could play rook g1. That is what Staunton did. The other rook comes in, and look at this tremendous attack. The queen is defending this square from this check, defending the knight. So is this a desperate situation? Well, there is this cool resource. Knight coming to g4, now trapping this rook here and setting sort of a stopper for the attack for the time being. But the knight can be attacked, and it is attacked. Pawn comes here with an attack on the knight. And we are now very, very close. there's only one move here. Knight comes here with a check. And this is where, because he was so good at chess, this is where Adolf Anderssen played the worst possible move in the position. So let's take a look at his options. Option number 1, capturing the knight with the pawn. Here he could calculate a line that he could see he had a winning attack. He had this tremendous attack going on. If he captured the knight with the pawn, he calculated the following line. Queen takes knight, that's check, also attacks this bishop, so you have to defend the bishop. And then this crucial move, you can go away with the king now. Then the only way to stay in the game for black is to capture here, capture here. This is something we will see in many of these variations. And you capture here. And now you are not really threatening any checkmates. This is defended by the rook. This is defended by the king, giving white time to capture here, threatening. Queen takes this, and you actually have to recapture this. Everything else loses, which gives white time to move this bishop out of the attack, and the position is just equal. You are throwing away your entire attack. So, capturing the knight here with the pawn does not work. And the short explanation for why it doesn't work is that there's nobody defending this knight then. So you could also capture with the bishop. What will happen here? This is even more complicated, and what goes on here is queen takes. That's the idea almost every time. The king can now come here, but again the king can come back, meaning that we do this, takes and takes, but now this bishop can be captured like this, and here the only move is to capture this bishop, allowing the rook to come here with this devastating attack. Here Anderssen then would have to see this move. Okay, he would have to allow this here, and he would have to see, of course he cannot go back here, he would be checkmated. He would have to see that he could come here, and that this position is still winning. This check doesn't do anything. You can capture the rook. You have to be sure check here. We make a new queen. Of course the board comes with extra queens, but I have misplaced mine. I put them in the box. Make an extra queen. You capture this, and you have to see here, check all the variations that you can escape the checks and escape the draw and have the checkmating attack, which is possible, but you had to calculate all of that. Okay, so he looked at the first variation we looked at, discarded it, that was just equal. He looked at this and says, this is way too messy, not sure I can get the draw. I'm not sure I can win this. Maybe there is a draw. Maybe there's something in this long variation that I missed. So let's look. Like this is This is so complicated. Okay, we have this here. We have another rook here. Bishop here. Am I remembering this correctly? We need this rook. It needs to be there. And this bishop needs to be here. Because it just captured the knight that was giving a check to the king, which was here. So this knight checks here. We have a pawn here. And of course the knight here that's under attack from this. Could we then maybe move the king? Well, we can't put the king here because of the knight. And if we go here, there's a forced queen trade. The queen comes here. That's check with a threat on the queen. Queen takes and knight takes, and the attack is gone as well. Okay. So that doesn't work. So when I looked over this game, you know, it's whenever I look over the great games of the masters, even if it's today I was looking at a Magnus Carlsen game, or 200 years ago looking at something like this, and there's a move I don't understand, it's usually because I don't get the tactics, and I have to analyze it, sometimes use a computer and stuff to get there. But can't we agree that my initial idea, and I guess also your initial idea, if you saw this position, if you were in this position, somebody played this knight move, would be to move the king or to capture the knight, like you would capture here or probably here, right? And capturing here is technically winning. It's complicated, but it's technically winning. Capturing here is a draw. And that you probably wouldn't consider this move, which Anderson played after a long think, considering all these other ways that he could lose his attack with all these complicated variations. He just kind of said, okay, by process of elimination, can't do any of that, I'll put the king here to avoid all of that. And now I give a question to you. Why was that not such a good idea? Can you find a good move for white? Can you find a good move for white? You can pause the video if you want to. 1, 2, 3, and I'll show you. It's a queen move with the king coming up here, blocking the queen's defense of this square. Queen coming here, defended by the knight. Well, that is checkmate. Yep, that's simply checkmate. Look at that. So yeah, that's the game. That's the chessboard. Link and stuff in the description. Big thanks to House of Staunton for sending me this. Also with this amazing box over here. So cool. And big thanks to the patrons who support the channel, and big thanks to just every one of you awesome people. I hope that you are having a great relaxed time. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. No matter how many times I say it, I can never express just how much it means, really. The only way I can show is by continuing making videos. So that's what I'm going to do, and I hope I will see you in the next one of those. Thanks for watching.